Well, in fact, as you step through your career, it's interesting reading your book. The parallel story to your career is the decline in the programs that you were once on, 60 Minutes, the Midday Show, A Current Affair. The audience is disappearing, and from what you're saying, perhaps the editorial standards too.
No, I don't think the audience... Well, the audience is disappearing only because I think commercial television tends to drive them away. I don't think 60 Minutes does. I think 60 Minutes still is a quality program, and I enjoy working on it. I think similarly with the Current Affair, the danger is, you see, a Current Affair and Today Tonight, each night on commercial television, have about 3.5 million Australians who watch them, if you take the regions and the cities. That's a substantial audience at 6:30 at night. So clearly they're delivering something that people want to watch. I don't think Australians are stupid. If they're watching it, it must be something that they want to watch. But I don't think it's current affairs. It's something else. It tends to be consumer affairs, if you like. Current affairs will work. It works on 7:30. It would work on commercial television. It works on commercial radio. I just don't think that. I think there are people who are program directors who don't understand their audience.
But perhaps the networks have decided that there's two audiences out there, and the one they understand is the one you just described there for the consumer affairs stories, not the current affairs stories. I mean, is that a fair judgment?
Yeah, I don't think it's an accurate judgment on their part, because I think that what we've proven in the past is with 60 Minutes and with the Current Affair and with the Sunday program, that there is a commercial audience that wants information. They don't just want to be titillated. They don't want yet another diet or the latest scam about real estate agents. They actually want some information.
How hard was it presenting a current affair sometimes? You sort of hint around it in the book, but how hard was it, perhaps in the secondary incarnation? You came back determined to make it a current affairs program again. It was very quickly a diet of diet stories.
Yeah, no, it was, except at the same time, I've also said that some of the best stories I ever did, I did on a current affair. I don't apologise for the period there. I had 8 years there altogether, but I was just saddened by the fact that I think audiences deserve better, and I think the team that we had there deserved better. But having said that, I don't have a monopoly on the truth. I worked with journalists who were every bit as good as me, and their opinion was we should go one way. So rather than have a brawl every day, I reached a point where I stepped aside. But I don't, that doesn't mean they were wrong. I think they were, but that doesn't mean they were.
Former Sydney Morning Herald political columnist Alan Ramsey has been doing some interviews because he's retired. He's put a book out too last week, and he bewails the orchestrated PR nature of politicians' offices, the stage management of political reporting. He calls it the daily sludge we're fed. Do you agree with that description, and do you think that there are enough tough questions being asked of our politicians these days?
No, I agree with Alan. Alan's impeccable, and so I think his judgment is you have to listen to what he has to say. But there's a big difference between working in the ABC or working in the Sydney Morning Herald and working for a commercial television station, in the sense that I know with ratings that if I put the Prime Minister on a current affair tonight, with Kevin Rudd talking, let's say, about Peter Costello, that we would probably lose 100,000 viewers tonight in Sydney alone, and the same in Melbourne. So, from a commercial point of view, do you accept that knock and go on and still interview the Prime Minister, or let alone the Leader of the Opposition? And that's a fact of life. You don't have to worry about that here, with respect. And Alan Ramsey didn't have to worry about that. But if you're in a commercial area where ratings matter and where you're neck and neck with your opposition, you do have to factor in, what do the audience want? Do the audience really want to listen to a politician? Well, it seems they don't.
But that was always a balancing act. From your experience in recent times compared to 20 years ago, what's the difference in the attitude of the editors, the executive producers, in terms of that balancing act?
I think 20 years ago we didn't have daily ratings. That changed it dramatically. In the days of Yana or Mike Willesee, we used to have fortnightly ratings that people filled books out and they didn't actually tell the truth of what they were watching at the time. Now we know exactly what they're watching. But I also say in the book that I think what Yana did and what I did on a current affair is that you have to take that knock. That if you're a current affairs program, you have to accept that a lot of people don't want to listen to the Prime Minister, no matter who it is, which party. But you've still got to do it, because other people do want to listen, and other people want to watch. So if you don't have the Prime Minister on a current affairs program at night, then they do go back to the ABC. That's the only outlet they've got.
What do you think of the coverage of a big story at the moment, the asylum seekers? What's your perspective on the way that's being covered now? Well,
on commercial television, I think it's been covered poorly. I just can't understand why on commercial television you wouldn't have the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition on debating this. It's such a key issue in Australia today in terms of policy, and yet you could turn commercial television on for the next month and probably not have that discussed, unless it was the sensational side of children overboard or that sort of stuff. And I think that's the problem.
Of course, as you said, you weren't born a current affairs journalist. You were born in the bush with mum and dad and 3 sisters. You had to move around a lot. 13 towns, I think, by the time you went to high school.
Yeah.
And a lot of it pretty rough and rugged. What do you think, or what account do you think that has had on your style as a journalist, your capacity to interview people? Do you think that upbringing and the toughness of that has had an impact on Ray Martin, the interviewer?
I'm probably the wrong person to answer it, but I think that that certainly it gives you an understanding of battlers. I used to get letters when I was doing Midday from people. We'd do a discussion of something like domestic violence or poverty or something like that, and people would write kindly and say, with respect, you wouldn't know.
What would you know?
That's right. And I used to say, well, in fact, I do know, but let's leave it there. I think that's part of it.
But does that stay with you? I mean, you'd be a wealthy man now. You're very successful. You've got a lot of glamour in your life, I presume. Does that stay with you, those early experiences and hardships?
Well, I think so. Certainly the work that I've done that you and I have talked about in the past with Aboriginal reconciliation, with a whole bunch of things, that stays with you. But I also know lots of people who were brought up in wealthy homes who still have a conscience, a social conscience, and get involved. I don't think it's necessary, but it doesn't hurt, I think, to understand that not everyone is born with a silver spoon.
Ray Martin, thanks very much for joining us on Breakfast.
Pleasure, Fran.
Ray Martin, I'll just call him Ray. Stories of My Life. His autobiography is out this week. It's 22 past 8.